gonna wash my face really fast. I'm waiting for my face to dry a little bit. Well, I guess we'll just start. So, I did a poll on my channel a couple days ago, and you guys said you wanted to know how David and I met. So, every time anyone asks me this, I always joke around and I say that we met in a cult. It's not true, but some people would consider it a cult. It was just sort of like an extremist Catholic youth group. Don't get me wrong, they promoted a lot of great stuff like praying the rosary as a family, weekly adoration, obviously weekly mass, but they like promoted daily mass because we were all homeschooled. I think like one family wasn't homeschooled, but anyway, yeah, promoting Latin mass, Marian modesty, like a bunch of these things. So a lot of people would see it as a cult. That's why I joke around, but it's not true. Okay, so my face is dry, actually. So let's just put on the mask. It doesn't say like how much to put on, but it says apply evenly. So I think I will just like pour like dots and then spread around. That's usually how I do my makeup. Put like dots all around and then evenly spread. So let's see. I guess I can actually talk a little bit while I'm doing this because anyway, so actually, let me rewind. We had met like years before this youth group was even a thing, because his family and one of I look so dumb. He was friends with one of my friends, and like their families are, their families were friends. And, but David and I never hung out because he has all brothers. Also, they weren't really like social people. It was mostly his mom that talked to her mom, and they didn't really like hang out that much. At least from what I know. I don't know like how deep their friendship was or whatever, you know. Anyway, we had met at a Bible study like years prior to this youth group. And is this even enough? Let's just bet it and then we'll see. I think it has to be like, oh maybe like that. Okay. Anyway, we had met first, our first introduction was when I was like 14 or 15, and all of my friends were at this one Bible study after the confirmation mass, and so that's when we had first met. Like, we're introduced, but we did not talk at all. I actually didn't go to that Bible study anymore. Like, I went like 2 or 3 times, and then I didn't even finish going to the Bible study. But anyway, so that was the first time we met. And then, turns out he was at another retreat that I was at for Disciples of Mary. And, I mean, I didn't know him there. I didn't even realize he was there. He wasn't like, oh, hey, I'm David, remember me? Nothing like that. I only found out later that he was there at the same place. So it just goes to show, your future spouse could be someone you run into multiple times in your life, and you don't even know. Anyway, I'm gonna look up the Tin Man after this. It's so funny. Being very vulnerable with you guys so soon. Like, it's too funny. Anyway. yeah, and then we didn't run into each other until years later at this same mutual friend. She had a birthday party for one of her siblings at the beach, and so we were all there having fun. Same thing, I didn't talk to him. I didn't talk to his family, anything like that. What had happened was this mutual friends just invited a bunch of people that they knew. Like all their closest friends came to the beach for this party. So, oh my gosh, we're itchy. Anyway, so at this beach party, there was another family that was like, hey, we should have a youth group. And they had talked to David and was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that would be such a good idea. So then they ended up forming that youth group in the fall, I think like August or September. I didn't go to the youth group at first. They kept on inviting me, but I was just so busy with work and like going to school. I was in college. But I ended up dropping out. Wait, I dropped out after I was going to Africa. Anyway, I have my timeline to live and stuff. Before I know for a fact, I started going in September or October of 2019. So that's when the youth group started. And then so we went to this youth group, and because it's so like extremist, right? They don't allow guys and girls to like sit next to each other or talk to each other really. Like the guys talk to the guys and the girls talk to the girls. And it was a really small youth group actually. It was only like 5 families. And they had a bunch of kids, so we were like, you know, it was just us. Like, it felt really intimate. It was a really intimate youth group. We had invited other people, but again, it was extremist. Some other people came. My baby's crying. She did wake up after all, so I guess I'll just keep talking while I rock her. So, it's a few of us families. We didn't talk to each other at all. We had a group chat, I think, but like we never talked one-on-one while we were in this youth group. And so during that time, actually, David had asked the mutual friend of ours out, and well, obviously it didn't work out. They never went on a date, basically. And then in the spring, so it was March 2020 is when COVID happened. During this whole youth group thing, I was working at the 99-cent store, and then COVID hit, and I was still working at the 99-cent store. It was a terrible, terrible experience. Don't recommend working during a pandemic, no matter how much money you need. I don't recommend it. Anyway, so in March, they shut everything down, and they're like, oh yeah, 2 weeks to stop the spread, right? And so we didn't have youth group like at all, and we had sort of like texted our friend, but we didn't text like the youth group. At least I don't remember doing that. Anyway, and so what was the thing? And so during this time, I don't remember if I texted David and his brothers or if my mom texted his mom. I don't remember the situation. Long story short, we basically hired them, David and his little brother and his younger brother, to come and clean our yard, or help my dad clean the yard, because we wanted to have a barbecue after the whole like COVID thing. With the youth group, like we wanted to invite them to our house, like for Easter or whatever it was. And so they were like, okay, yeah, like we'll take some extra money, like that's cool. Um, and so they were coming like every Saturday. But I was at work, so I didn't really interact with them that much when they were there. But they would stay there from like the morning to like the evening because my parents would make them like lunch and dinner, and then we'd be talking, so they would be on break for like an hour, at least an hour. So yeah. And eventually, we get to know them better. But still, David is not very talkative, so I feel like he hardly spoke. His older brother did most of the talking. Sorry, that's not a diss. That's just your personality, dude. I don't think he'll see this, but I just wanted to put that in there just in case. And so, where was I? Yeah, he didn't really talk a lot. And so I was like, oh, whatever, like, I wasn't interested, I wasn't like, oh, like, he would be blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, consistently like, oh, thinking about him, or maybe I should talk to him, maybe I should text him. I was not really about that. But then I find out he had never went to prom. Wow, big shocker in mine that he never went to prom. He's not a party person, so it makes sense. Anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's one of the big stigmas against homeschoolers is that they don't socialize, they don't go to prom, they don't have dances, and we have a dance, so you have to go. And he was like, oh, maybe. And this was over text. I texted him and his older brother, and I was like, you guys have to come to prom, like that'll be so fun, blah, blah, blah. And then after, I think like in April, we're finally talking one-on-one, maybe? I don't exactly remember. Anyway, prom ends up being canceled, but David had already made plans to like prom pose to me. So I guess while I was at work, he came to my parents' house and he had talked to my dad like, oh hey, I want to ask her to prom, and I want to get to know her better, blah, blah, blah. And so my dad was like, sure, okay, you can take her to prom. Well, basically, like during that week, or I don't remember exactly, he came and he asked me to prom with this cute little sign. I'll put like a picture right here. It was so cute. Like my sister gave him so many pointers with like the flowers on the how to ask me and everything. He didn't take the flower idea, but I still like flowers, whatever. And so he was like, oh, do you want to go to prom with me? And I was like, oh yeah. And then we like talked for a little bit, like by ourselves, so everyone else like went inside or went to go get drinks, or I don't remember what. And he was like, well, it was kind of awkward and quiet because we had never been alone and we had never talked one-on-one in person before. So then he was like, I also kind of want to, not kind of, he was straight up, it's the way I talk, like, I kind of want to, like, so annoying. Anyway, he was straightforward, and he told me, like, I wanted to get to know you better, if that's okay with you. And I was like, yeah, that's okay. And then it was like an awkward moment, and then, yeah, we just talked about, like, random stuff. Okay, she fell asleep, so I'm gonna rinse this off. That's how we met. That's pretty much the whole story. I kind of told it a little quickly, but that's pretty much it. There's not really any other details besides all that stuff. Who's not coming out? There we go. We recorded like more traditionally. So if you guys want a video about that, or basically our courtship story, I guess. I don't know. Like, I want more juicy details about our courtship and how that all worked and the timeline of everything. Just let me know and I'll try and do a video on that. I think David's younger brother wants to interview us or something about like how we courted. So if he does that, I will repost it either as a whole video on my channel, or I'll just share it in the community as a post. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I just like to encourage anyone who's, you know, waiting for their spouse. What I've found that's very common is that if it's meant to be, it'll happen pretty quickly, and you'll know quickly. Like, basically, I pretty much knew, like, okay, if I married this guy, like, I'd be cool. Like, basically, I had that thought, like, by the second date. On that second date, we really, like, asked each other a lot of questions, and then after that, it was just enjoying this time, getting to know each other on, like, a deeper level. But we had asked questions like, well, are you good at math, like, permanently, like, I don't know, what else did we talk about? I think we talked about, like, you know, homeschooling our kids, what we want in life, like, if we would move out of state, like, would you be able to do that, or whatever. Of course, you can't talk about every single situation that could happen in your entire lives together, like, that's kind of crazy. And also, like, you talk about it when the time comes. You don't have to stress about, like, if I get disabled, are you gonna, like, be okay? Because obviously this kind of stuff. But I mean stuff like, you know, modesty, how you want to raise your kids. I mean, stuff like that. We were mostly talking about, like, how we grew up, things that we would change in our own parenting styles. And just talking about, like, giving a run through of our life and, like, what we went through. And that I really got to trust him after that, because I felt like I knew him. Before that, we had never talked one-on-one, and it was, our first date was extremely awkward and, like, mostly quiet. We just talked about, like, pretty basic stuff. You can't really talk about deep stuff on the first date. The first date is just like a test run, I think, for the second date. At least that's what it was for us. But yeah, I just want to encourage you to not be afraid to ask those hard questions in the beginning of your relationship, or to cut off the relationship if it's not, if you already know that, you know, oh, maybe I'll change him, maybe he'll change his mind, or whatever. Obviously, you know what's most important to you, and, you know, you don't have to look at things sort of objectively, because, I mean, okay, maybe some guy isn't what you would imagine yourself marrying. I'm just gonna put that out there. But it's the personality, it's the humor, it's the... What my mom told me is this: watch how he treats his mom, because that's how he's gonna treat you. And one of the things that really stood out to me that I distinctly remember making a note of, because, you know, you just notice things, is that at the youth group, his mom was pregnant at the time, and he always, like, got up to give her food or give her water or, like, help with the kids. So me seeing that, I was like, okay, like, I know what he's about. I know he's not like some moody teenager or adult that doesn't care about his family. Like, he really does care. And so that really helped me to trust him as well. I know not everyone's situation is like that when they first meet someone. Maybe you won't see this person's family until, like, you're 6 months into the relationship. But my mom has always stressed to us, like, be around their family, because they're going to become your family after you're married. And watch how he is with his mom, how he talks about his parents or his friends, like, all that sort of stuff. you can look at it objectively. Even if you like the person a lot, you can still see like, okay, that wasn't cool of you to say or whatever. Anyway, nobody's perfect. The most important thing is have good character and love God more than anything else, more than you, more than your relationship, for him to want to grow in holiness and being the leader, being the one that's like, we should pray rosary together, we should go to adoration together, we should do all these things that will take us to heaven, because that's his job, and that's a good leader for your family. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about that. Okay, that's for real, the final ending, I promise. I have nothing else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, let me know in the comments if you want our courtship story, or if you have another idea for a video, and I will try to get that to you as soon as possible. Okay, God bless you guys. Good night.